Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Test. Through. Test. Test. Test 1, 2. Check.
Okay, I will call the Everman City Council workshop for Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 to order. The time is 5:11. And we're going to go ahead and drop down to number 7, discussion items. Item A, budget workshop, payroll and benefits, water and sewer fund, and special revenue expenditures.
That's all right. Yes, that is. Thank you. You want to start or me? Yeah. Okay, we'll kick off the budget workshop. So, obviously Susan has been working diligently over the last several days, several weeks on putting all this together. Some of the unknowns that we need to discuss early on in the budget process as we're working through this and as we move forward is obviously there has been sweeping legislation regarding property taxes. We've been trying to identify with TML and the city attorneys exactly how that affects us. We know that the legislature just had a special session that approved a homestead exemption from 40,000 to 100,000. I got some clarification on that from the city attorney just a little bit ago that TML put out yesterday. And that is that all of the tax relief so far has been pertaining to school district taxes only. And therefore, based off the TML input and from our city attorneys, we should not see much of an impact based off the sweeping bills that they've passed. But with that, again, we won't know taxes until we get closer to the truth and taxation process towards the end of the budget. So as with every year, we have to kind of go at this in a reverse order. We have to predict and anticipate what our expenditures are going to be for the year. And then when we get to the truth and taxation process, we'll go through that, look at a tax rate that the council would like to adopt, and then make any adjustments to the expenditures based off the tax rate and anticipated revenues. Tonight, as we're working through this, one of the first things that we're going to talk about is personnel. With personnel last year, council approved a 15%. Let me correct myself. It was an 8% cost of living increase. Was it 8%? 15%. That's right, 11.5% and 3.5%. So a 15% increase for most employees. It was 11.5% cost of living increase. I can tell you that after council approved that and adopted the budget, all of the staff has been tremendously thankful for that huge jump. That has put the majority of our staff in line with like-sized cities. It has brought us up to being more competitive with like-sized cities, particularly in areas like City Hall, Public Works, dispatch. Those are certainly areas that we've seen a significant improvement, and everybody's been very appreciative. The two areas that are still behind are police and fire. So what I'm proposing this year and what I would like to do is propose a 1.5% cost of living increase, which means all employees will get a 1.5% cost of living increase, even if they're capped. And then any employee who's not capped will still receive the step increase of 3.5%. So any employee who's not capped will get the overall 5% increase. For fire and police, what I'd like to do, or what I'd like to propose to council to bring them in line with like-sized cities and make it to where it's more competitive, is provide a pay grade increase. So currently police officers are paid at pay grade F, I believe. Yes, pay grade F. We would like to propose that we bump them up to a pay grade G, sergeants from G to H, and corporals from G to H, sergeants from H to I. This will bring us to a roughly starting salary range for police officers and firefighters of about $55,000 a year. They will cap out after 10 years at about $72,000 a year. This will certainly make it more competitive. There's the alarm company. Certainly make us more competitive on the lower end still of like-sized cities. but make it more competitive. One of the struggles we've had last year, and as we go through expenditures later this week, and you'll see it in both police and fire, police specifically, it took us a year to recover from those additional positions going through recruiting, just because we had such a hard time recruiting officers and getting them in the door. I know based off of our culture, the practices and the way that our department operates, that normally if I can get somebody in the door, they tend to enjoy the culture, enjoy working here, like all the other benefits. And we have a pretty good retention there. We added a couple of SRO positions and it made it very difficult for us to fill the gaps that those positions created. So increasing the salary in those areas would be extremely beneficial and help them out. So our focus this year for salaries, we'd like to focus a heavier increase on police and fire. So for firefighters and police, they would go from pay grade F to G. For for police officers, it would go from F to G. For police corporals, they'll go from G to H. And then for police sergeants, from H to I. On average, that's about a $9,000 a year pay raise for all the current staff members. And as we go forward, you'll see we'll have a breakout for you a little bit more detailed. Again, as we go through this, there are specific personnel names on here. Please, we ask that we don't identify any personnel names during the public meeting. If we need to go in and there needs to be any further discussion on an individual, then I would recommend that we convene an executive session to consult with the city attorney on that. But this is the overall portion of it. Any questions on just the overview of what we're proposing salary and pay wise? Sorry, don't forget to turn on your mic when you talk. Sorry, just so they can hear.
Currently, firefighter EMTs are pay grade A, firefighter advanced EMTs are pay grade B, and firefighter paramedics are pay grade C, and then lieutenant paramedics are pay grade D. They would all customarily be moved up once.
That's correct.
Any questions? Any other questions about the overall view? Okay. On the next page, past the pay scales, you'll see the compensation summary, how it would affect general fund and water fund. The proposal that I just proposed to you is built out. Susan included those numbers in here. So the overall impact that would have, if you look on the general fund, the overall impact, the cost of living raise, as well as the pay grade increase for police and fire, there would be a $468,869 impact to general fund. And then water and sewer fund shows $119,122. But there is a little bit further explanation on water sewer fund that we'll get to here in just a minute.
It's a 13% to general.
So 13% overall impact to general fund.
Yeah, but we'll get into that. That's not what he's been discussing.
Yeah, we're going to get into water and sewer here in just a second. Next page is a breakout of the general fund compensation, so you can see where the impact is hitting the most, based out by department. So you'll see administration, finance, human resources, city secretary. This is a breakout of that total $468,869. The biggest impact being in police and in fire. Police obviously having the larger impact because of more staff members than fire.
And actually, looking at this, if you're looking at the budget change numbers here, it also appears that city secretary has a huge increase. But that is due to the reallocation of positions and moving additional personnel underneath her that weren't currently under her. It's not that she's getting 15%.
The library staff, moving those positions.
Several of them. Yes.
Yes.
It's not been
Um,
decided who's going where yet, but yes, as far as budget, yes, we've reallocated the position. So you'll no longer see library on here. That's why there'll be an increase on several of the departments.
And one other thing to note on here is also for dispatch. So if you take these numbers and you compare with last year's printed budget, the dispatch numbers are going to be very different. Because if you recall, throughout the middle of the last year, we made several changes. We increased staffing and all that in dispatch. So last year, we budgeted a significantly lower number. We still have budget amendments to complete to balance that back out. So if you go to compare this to the previous printed budget, you'll notice a big difference there. That's why, is because of the change in the dispatch operation.
No.
Administration as well.
Administration and finance and
I believe two.
yeah, you'll see in a few pages, you'll see the breakout of employees. Yeah. There are
Okay, next page is the water and sewer compensation. So if you notice on this one, it says water department employee total would be 7. Currently, there are only 4 within the water water department. We are proposing this next year that we add 3 personnel to the water department. They are, and Gilbert can elaborate on the amount of work, and you probably see, they are struggling to keep up with their daily tasks and things that are asked of our public works staff. We've done some comparison and talking to other like-sized cities about numbers of staff, and other cities about our size have anywhere from 15 to 20 employees within public works. He has got a total of 7 right now. So he is severely understaffed, struggling to keep up with the workload that is ever increasing on him, especially as we talk about the new water accounts that are coming in, the water taps, all the things that we expect from public works. He is hurting for people. So we are asking for an increase in staffing in the water department that will be funded through the water fund to give him 3 additional positions there, adding more staff. So you'll see that's the big reason why you see such a jump there, is primarily because of those additional personnel positions. And then, of course, in utility billing, we have the 2 clerks in the front. And that's that is correct. Yes. Edna is not compensated out of this fund, correct?
she's paid out of court.
Correct. She oversees utility billing. Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions there? Okay, next page is overtime summary by fund. Administration, minimal overtime, it's just clerical staff. There's no overtime for finance, human resources, or city secretary. All those are salaried positions. When you get down to public works, there has been an increase in overtime in this. And Gilbert, do you want to elaborate on overtime? Don't forget your mic. I'll throw you under a bus. Be all right.
Most of it's just due to just things is out of our hands, like water leaks. You hear me now? Most of it has to do with about water leaks and stuff like that that pops out here and there. But also helping out on the events that we have here for Everman. So and then whatever else comes out, so whatever else happens in the city, that the guys are always there available to help out. So that is why we decided to raise it up a little, just to make sure that it gets covered.
He does work with his guys. So if they're out here, if they work all night on a Friday night or Saturday night on a water main break or something, he tries to comp the time off, tell them to, take half a day off on Monday or something. So he tries to alleviate that through other means, but There's times where it just can't be alleviated. And there's times where the guys prefer to get the overtime. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Sometimes they want the overtime. They want to work. Yes, ma'am. So that's primarily due to the rules with FLSA require the way firefighters are firefighters and police are, they've always got to have their special rules. So
Their special
the way that they're compensated, because firefighters work a significantly different schedule than a normal Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They're working typically 24 on, 48 off, or in our case, 48 on, 72 off. They work about 120, between 108 and 120 hours per pay period, whereas a normal full-time employee works 80. So the way that FLSA rules work when it comes to compensation of firefighters is we are allowed to compensate them at a higher rate of a higher number of hours at the regular pay, but anything in excess of 106 has to be paid at an overtime rate. So every third pay period, they're getting 14 hours. Every firefighter, every employee gets 14 hours of overtime, the way that they're compensated. So that overtime budget has to be built out enough to compensate them in accordance with FLSA.
Actually, so our cycle is, and when we transition from the 24 out on 48 off to the 48 on 96 off, it didn't change our overall expense for overtime. The cycles were just different, but obviously as we've grown and expanded, overtime is built in with our staffing, and if we've got an extra additional, now that we have 3-man staffing on each shift, there's additional overtime costs that are built into that. But each pay cycle, they get 120 hours, 120 hours from the 96. So every third check, there's absolutely no overtime on it. And then the other two does have overtime on it, but it's not an increase from the previous schedule.
And I'm sorry.
Increase in
So for pretty much the same reason. So FLSA applies to police and it applies to fire. It does not apply to dispatchers. Dispatchers are still considered civilian. So anything over 80 hours pay period that they work, or anything over 40 hours a week actually that they work, has to be paid at overtime rate. So that's calculated in when we do the budget and look for revenues from other cities. When they pay into the dispatch function, we calculate this overtime amount into that. So it's essentially a wash when it comes to dispatch. We will collect that on a revenue side. We bill that out to make sure that we're staying in the appropriate budget. But anything, they work 84-hour pay periods. And so they get 4 hours of overtime every pay period, every employee. And then on top of that, any extra overtime for coverage of vacation, sick, major events, any of that stuff, we budget that as well. I think 52,000 of that is built in overtime into their normal pay. The additional 20,000 is just spare overtime to cover vacations and all that. Back to fire real quick. I think it's one thing to point out too. When you go back and you look at the expenditure budget with the fire department, we took the salaries line item, the part-time salaries line item, the salaries overtime line item, and compensation, the contract labor compensation. And when you put all those together, even with the increase here in his overtime budget, he's still sitting at like 75% usage. So we're on target. We're not going over budget with his salaries and fire. So what we do is each year, as a part of the agreements with the other municipalities, we negotiate the rate that they pay in. We take the budgeted revenues that each one of these municipalities pay in or partners pay in, and then we build the budget based off those revenues, and then an approximate 5% increase to the dispatch budget like we would normally have. So you take our budget, you would add 5% to it. What would we normally be paying into if it wasn't for this agreement? And that's our target that we contribute to this project. The other cities all contribute. County, the Tarrant County ESD is agreeing to pay a 5% increase this next year. Any municipality with a population over 10,000 is paying a 10% increase this year. Any population between 5 and 10,000 is paying a 5% increase. And any municipality with less than 5,000 is paying a 0% increase this next year. All have agreed to that. So the increases in dispatch that you see, there's going to be some major jumps over last year's. All of those are balanced. I can get you a different spreadsheet if you want on how we do that, but it is built a little differently than Susan. Susan was making fun of my spreadsheet earlier today. So I can get you a different spreadsheet that shows how the revenues and dispatch operations are calculated out, so that you know that we're not contributing, a great deal of additional tax dollars from Everman towards dispatch operation funding this. This is primarily funded by outside organizations.
See more of that when we go through the expenditures by department, when you look at the dispatch and we see all of the expenditures and all of the revenues for dispatch, and you can see that it's offset. It does look cute right here on this page. I'm with you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, 5,000 now with this, once we get the agreement and we get everybody hired, we're not anticipating a whole bunch of overtime coming out of that. Well, $2,500 was not a lot to budget for overtime in that role in the first
Because
place.
It's currently at 2,500 and we've already busted the budget for this year. So hopefully with the agreements, that'll slow down and we won't use all of that 5,000 next year, but I'd rather have a little bit of, yeah. You never know. Exactly. That's why I'd rather, budget on the side of caution.
That's very rare, but in few instances, if they have to stay late, let's say a miscalculation occurs and they've got to stay late to correct an issue, or we have a special event in the city that we've asked them to participate in.
Bailouts or anything like that. Honestly, this is just a low number put in there because so far this year, I think we've used $100 in overtime for utility billing. It just doesn't happen, but just coverage there.
Any questions on overtime? Okay, so the next couple pages are compensation per department, per employee broken out. Again, I don't want to specifically identify. You can review this. The cost of living increase is based upon the COLA amount that you see there is based upon a 3.5% step increase, as well as a 1.5% cost of living increase. If that employee is already capped out at step 10, then it just is a 1.5% increase, with the exception of fire and police. So if you want to drop down, you can see those jumps there that we talked about, where on average it's about $9,000 per employee within fire and police on average increase, bringing their salaries up to comparative to like-sized cities.
And I tried to think back to last year. I know there were a lot of questions. I indicated which individuals are part-time, whether they're salary or hourly. So there's lots of information on this couple of pages.
Any general questions here? With the proposed addition of the 3 positions, yes. We are proposing that we add 3 positions within water department this year. So those are calculated in here so that you can see what the budget impact would be. Yes,
Yes.
they are. They are brothers. Yes. And they are the funnest people. They're a lot of fun. They're really good people. And when you talk about customer service, those two guys are incredible. I don't know if you called City Hall at all lately, but when you call, I feel like I'm calling JC Penney's because he answers that phone. Thank you for calling City of Everman, City Hall. This is Jared. How can I help you? I mean, he's just super friendly. It's great. It's great. Love it. Yes, it's great. No, those guys are great. Right. No questions there. Move on to employee benefits. As you know, historically, we won't know anything related to benefits until the last minute. So we are budgeting for a 10% increase. We did have a meeting with Rodney. There is a chance that we could come in significantly lower than that. We just don't know an amount. So to be safe, we would rather budget, be conservative and budget 10% just to be on the safe side. And hopefully we'll get some good news and come back much lower than that when it comes time for the approval of the budget, or even after the adoption of the budget. Maybe we'll have some salaries or savings there. So we did budget a 10% increase across the board. You can see the impact there, the benefit summary by department, I'm sorry, by fund, the impact it's going to have on general fund versus the impact it's going to have on water and sewer fund. Next page is the general fund broken out by department. So you can see the impacts per department.
These are all the benefits, not just medical.
If there's a lot of them, that's not good, right?
Well, in this particular one with the benefits, because there's so many columns, kind of.
Next page is water and sewer benefits. So you can see the breakout there. One thing to highlight with our benefits is, I think, when we met with Rodney on benefits, we did ask them to go to market. Not that we are going to change, but it never hurts to go to market and see what kind of deals we might be able to get. So that's part of the reason why we're waiting to see what comes back. To date, this past year, I think all the employees have been very satisfied with the benefits. I will tell you, just like Rodney tells you every year, and we talk about, and you guys offer and approve some phenomenal benefits for our employees, and that is noted and truly appreciated. Everybody's always been very appreciative of the benefit package that we have, particularly when it comes to the health, dental, vision, life. Those are great packages. Any questions over salaries and benefits? Okay. So we'll go into expenditures. And we're doing special fund expenditures tonight. So we're not going to do every department, just the special funds. First one. Sorry, I had to look at Gilbert. Water and sewer fund. So you can see the overall for water, sewer, utility billing, and debt service. You'll see last year's actual numbers. I'm sorry, 2022's actual numbers, last year's adopted budget, revised budget year to date, and then the proposed budget. Not anything too substantial other than within water. The biggest contributor to that 30% increase that you're seeing there is the 3 additional staff. Gilbert also does have a couple of capital items that he would like to request from council this year from the water sewer fund. But if you go over to the next page, there's the debt service breakout.
No significant changes there, just shift in principal versus interest and an increase of $100 in the paying agent fee. So that's it. Debt service on this is the water and sewer debt service. Not the general.
And then the next page is the expenditure summary for the water fund. Some of these percentages look big, like the 33% on computer programming and M&A, but it's really only a $500 increase because of the small dollar amount. So Gilbert has requested an increase in uniforms. We have, do you want to explain that, the uniform agreement to him and the kind of pickle that proposed between the uniform agreement and what you want to do?
Yeah, so it's been a big issue with our uniform agreement we have with UniFirst. They provide us with uniforms, but what they want to provide us with. So it's kind of hard to get our uniforms like we need to. Some of the guys only have 2 shirts or 2 pants, and stuff like that. So we've been trying to work with them for over a year. Saying that, so I talked to them and told them, hey, so how much would it be for us to go ahead and, cancel the services due to the fact that, we're having some pretty bad services from you guys. They were pretty nice about it, so we're able to go ahead and get out of that, agreement for $2,000 or so around there. But what I want to do now is just purchase or give the guys like a $200 budget every year so they can purchase shirts and pants from this other company that we used to use at the other city. And that would make things a lot easier to where now we get to keep the shirts, we take care of them, we'll go ahead and wash them. And if we need to buy some more, we could go ahead and purchase them. So I think it'll be a lot cheaper for us to go that route as well.
So you're thinking of washing your own shirts? Not you particularly.
Yeah,
Let
we'll,
them do their own. or what?
we already do it now because we were trying to save some money on that contract. But it seems like we've gone over quite a bit. So it's not really saving us any money at all. So by us changing over to the other program we're trying to get going is gonna save us some money.
The uniforms that they are issued are they look like mechanic uniforms. They are the thick poly wool blend. They're very hot in the summer. The guys hate wearing them in the summer. They're extremely uncomfortable. Going to a uniform, almost like a t-shirt or polo, offers a more comfortable working uniform for the employees. And then for the utility lead and parks lead, it also offers them a more professional appearance too. And he's able to get more bang out of his buck. The UniFirst agreement only gives each employee 2 uniforms. The guy works in it one day, he's got to wash it, especially during the summertime. So he's constantly having to wash. We can't wait for UniFirst to bring new ones out and replace them. So they're already having to wash them anyway. Giving them, 4 to 5 to even 6 sets for $200, they might be able to go out and get 2 weeks worth of uniforms and really equip them with different options. And then when they do have a rip, a tear, something happens to that, they have spares and they don't have to wait for, UniFirst to supply the other ones. So I think UniFirst has its place in the world. I just don't know that it's in public works.
Laboratory fees went up 100%.
Yes, primarily because of the increase in water accounts and things. We're adding 202 water accounts, testing. Gilbert has had to make sure that we are compliant with all the TCEQ requirements and testing. So there is an increase there of $3,000 for library fees. Well, as you can see, we've already busted that budget this year. And we still have some more to go.
67% in minor equipment.
Hang on, let's cover the lines real quick, just because there's an increase there. Lines, valves, and fittings, he is requesting an increase
Where are,
just under laboratory fees.
oh, okay.
Lines, valves, and
This
fittings.
is 25%.
Sure, yeah.
It's not 100%. We're getting
But
down
but
there.
but $5,000 is more than $3,000.
Get down.
So yeah, he is requesting an increase there to primarily address all the new issues that we've got with the new water accounts and everything coming in. You'll see a lot of increases in water due to new water accounts.
Yeah, but it went from 200 to 500. It's kind of skewed.
Right.
When you look at the percentage, yeah.
So professional service, let me, y'all are jumping around on me here. There we go. If you look, professional service, we budgeted $45,000. We spent $160,000.
What is?
That is mostly, the majority of that is our engineering fees, correct?
Some of that has to do with the sewer emergency we had over here next by the school. So that part of that, that's what takes that, that's what took most of that money. So we want to make sure that we have some money there if something else like that happens. Hopefully not. But stuff like this, that does happen, does take a lot of money because it's special. So, and this was also cover our wells as well, if there's like an emergency.
Cover what?
Our well system. So if our wells goes down again, we should have some money for professional services.
So the wells is a unique situation that I'm not sure. Trying to think of how to approach. I want to make sure we're good to talk about this publicly already. I don't see any reason why not. Can you think of a reason why not? Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, we've been looking into it. I just want to make sure we're not jumping the gun. So the water wells, the problem with the wells is we as a city over the last 40 or 50 years have not implemented any sort of contingency plan with the wells. So one of Gilbert's first tasks when he got here was how do we make our system more resilient? Researched it, and to make our system more resilient, it's going to cost the city millions of dollars. If we experience another February, the winter storm that we had in February, where all of Everman loses power, our water system will be completely down because there is no contingency plan for power at any of our well sites, and that's a deep concern. Additionally, there is continual maintenance costs and things going forward with wells. Columbine is the newest. We have our newest well at Columbine, but some of our other wells, pumps and things are old, and they're going to go out. And I think the pump. Do you remember what you told me? The average lifespan of a pump was 10 years.
Supposed to be about 10 years, but depending, since we're using it regularly every day, it's gonna drop probably to like 7 to 5 years.
And so how many pumps do we have total? Do you remember?
Not on top of my head, but we got 7 wells, so that's 7
Two, four,
pumps,
six.
well pumps,
eight.
and that's not including the booster pumps. So booster pumps, we probably have about 8 or 10.
So there's roughly 16 to 17 pumps that we've got to go through and cycle through and replace. Anyway, my point is that as we continue, we've got ongoing maintenance costs. We don't have a resiliency plan in place or contingency plan in place for power reserve. So there's a lot of concerns there. What's the best move for investment? So we have started conversations with the city of Fort Worth about how do we look to purchase surface water in addition to well water. The other facet of this is we anticipate, and this has been expressed by Greg Saunders, our previous engineer, that at some point in the future, and it may be 20 years down the road, but at some point in the future, the aquifers are going to say enough's enough. You need to stop tapping our aquifers. So there's only a limited resource there that we can continue to tap into. And as the city continues to grow, water resources are continuing to be used. We have to have a backup plan. And we've been working towards developing that backup plan and creating like a 5 and 10 year plan on water has been Gilbert's priority. And that may involve us having to purchase stormwater from the city of Fort Worth. Don't let that scare you though, because the pricing of it is actually very good. When you compare the pricing of purchasing surface water from Fort Worth compared with purchasing the well water that we're purchasing, it's almost equal without the maintenance cost and everything that goes along with it. The biggest expenditure for us is making sure that we have a place to store that water and then move that water out. So there is still some maintenance cost along with that, but it's not as significant as standing up a new well. Yes.
As far as I know, we have only one, the one that we have replaced this year.
The booster pump went out but not the well itself. The well itself has not been replaced. So you've got two different pumps. When you talk about the structure of the well system, you've got the pump that brings the water up from the aquifer. And then the booster pumps is what pushes that water out into the system. So we have two pumps per well site. And I think it was the booster pump that went out on Shelby that we had to replace, but not the well pump. The well pump itself is, I don't think any of them have been replaced in quite some time. No, ma'am, not. That's a brand new well. We added a well on Columbine. That is a new well. In addition to the six, we had six previously, we added a new well at Columbine. There was one, now there's two. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and it's, I don't even know that I'd say replaced. It's a new one altogether. The old one that's there is the original one. It has not been replaced. Remember, we had to add that well site in order to accommodate the Hannah Ranch subdivision development that was coming in, so that we had the water flows to meet the demand. However, even after doing that, TCEQ changed the regulations and we're still below par and have to improve and get up to regulation. Yes, ma'am, about 20 years. There's that was part of the 2020 CO bond that was taken out. And so I think we've got 1 year of payments down on that. So I think that's a debt the city will carry for another 19 years. Jumping down to capital expenditures. Gilbert does have a couple of capital expenditures that he would like to obtain this year. Do you want to cover those real quick?
So one of the things we wanted to do at Shelby Well Lot is go ahead and build a shed for our equipment. I know that was a big thing that we were talking about when Bernie got here, so we wanted to go ahead and do that. But also right beside that carport, we can say, right beside that carport, we want to go ahead and build a concrete slab where we'll be able to put our asphalt, our rock, and our sand, so it will not be on the dirt, and we can have some clean stuff we can use when we do our main breaks and stuff like that. So with that, how much was that, Craig?
$40,000, no, I'm sorry, $60,000 for the carport and slab. The carport would protect what equipment? Can you identify what equipment that carport?
Yeah, it would be the backhoe, the skid steer, the new asphalt trailer, the new jetter machine, and then the trailer, the new trailer we have as well.
There was also additional funding that he wanted to utilize to move the fence out, to extend that fence out to our property line, so that he's using all of the space available out there on our property. So we'd like to realign that fence up to our property line, so he's got more space out there for the appropriate storage of equipment and materials. He also identified the well site at high school and Shelby, right? I think is what we talked about. The well sites currently for the screening, we're using a soft material that it degrades about over a year. It degrades and rips. So he'd like to replace that with a solid plastic material, the inserts that go into the chain link. That way it'll last, 10, 20 years and not have to replace that fiber material every year. Coverage for the equipment, the screening, and the relocating of the fence for $97,000. Yes, ma'am. That's what he's asking to spend that money on. Yes, the skid steer, backhoe, asphalt trailer, a new trailer that they've got,
The jetter machine.
jetter machine. Yes, ma'am. Because currently all that equipment it's sitting out in the back lot of the Public Works building. They're stored inside the Public Works building right now, I believe. Yeah, the ATVs. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Y'all, oh, go ahead. I was just about to mention that. So administrative transfers out, when we look at, these specific funds, each fund has its own set of rules that we have to go by. And some funds like the water fund, when you have an enterprise fund, although there's administrative cost to running this fund. And is the administrator, did you include the breakout? We can get you that breakout if you'd like, but we go through each year, we calculate the administrative cost, and that may be things like the percentage due for electrical, the gas, administrative cost for certain personnel, the financial management software, all the things it takes to operate this fund and operate this department that are paid for out of general fund. It pays for that percentage coming out through the admin transfer. It's essentially, we tax that fund to be able to administer the fund.
Monthly.
All right. Any questions on water? Sewer, the only increase is just sewer maintenance. There's no other increases there. Utility billing. Just a slight increase in office supplies, as well as adding its own postage and freight. And do you want to explain this one? I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember.
Well, we have now added where we notify the residents when they're about to get cut off. And so it's additional envelopes and postage that was not allocated previously because we weren't sending out those notifications. So that's what that 3,000 is for.
And that was actually, the cost for that currently is hitting general fund. It's a water department function, so we want it to hit the water fund going forward. That's why you're seeing a low amount. If you're wondering why we only spent $235 last year, well, that's because we're actually paying for it out of general fund currently.
Change in salaries is just combining the part-time. Because previously had part-time employees and now they're both full-time employees, so we moved it all up to this regular salaries line.
Any questions there? All right. Next is debt service by department.
So this is the general fund portion of the debt service. Yes, that's correct, but it has its separate fund, debt service, but yes, it's the general fund portion. And again, there's not a lot of change, just kind of shifting of the principal and interest. Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, we did a 7-year, 10-year.
10.
Yeah, that was a 10-year note.
We've already made 2 payments.
because they took forever. All right, next are special revenue funds. Expenditure summary by fund on the front page, so you can see the other special revenue funds. The breakout of them, obviously, we're gonna go into each individual department. So if you turn over the next page, you'll see T-Col. This fund, T-Col, which is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, provides every agency in Texas with a certain amount, certain dollar amount per officer, specifically for training. So that's just money coming in that we get from T-Col. We have to spend that money on officer training, and we do every year. So we don't really control that amount. T-Col sets that amount. Next is EDC.
And I wanted to mention, I made one change since I sent it to you earlier. And it was just a slight change in the principal and interest amount of those two payments. So, yeah. That's about the only change to his budget here is the principal and interest fluctuation there. And then a slight increase in the transfers out on the administrative transfers.
And one of the questions that's probably coming, as I try to predict your questions, is are we able to use the proceeds generated from the Civic Center to pay this like we talked about? The answer is yes, we can, and we will, but we do that as a budget amendment at the end of the year. So whatever we've gained at the end of the year, we'll funnel that back in, and we can do a budget amendment at the end of the year to allocate any excess proceeds that we've got, minus cost of operations, the janitor costs and those kinds of things, to allocate that back to the EDC. But we'll do that at the end of each budget year as a budget amendment, because we don't know, we can't predict how much we're gonna make off rentals each year. So. We've made one tax note payment already this past year, right? Or two.
We've made 2 or 3 payments already. We've made 2. This is the 3rd. I'm sorry.
So the money the city gets from renting the civic center, is that put in the general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that's the money we're talking about, that at the end of the fiscal year, we'll forward or
Yes.
transfer
Mhm.
into EDC. Okay.
Now, less any expenditures. I mean, because there are cost operating. I mean, every rental, we have to pay for janitorial, we have to pay for the linen cleaning, those kinds of things. But less any expenditures associated with running the Civic Center. Yes, the plan was, as long as that's what council wants to continue to do, was to allocate that back to the EDC to lessen the burden on the EDC fund.
Which we have not done yet.
No.
Or, the last year there weren't enough rentals to do any transfer, but hopefully this year we're looking at a transfer.
The EDC fund guarantees the payment. So the EDC fund is going to guarantee that $75,000 payment back on the tax note. What we do and what council has opted to do is any proceeds we get as a result of that, instead of EDC paying it back, we use the proceeds we've gained to help pay that back to lessen the burden here. But if we have no rentals, there's no revenue at all, then the EDC fund would guarantee that payment still. So there were 2 payment methods that we used to build this building. We initially took out the 2020 CO. And then after taking out the CO based off the anticipated cost of the building, we identified that the plans for the project included an asphalt parking lot, and there were some other issues and things that we wanted to make sure that we included to make this building a success. So we needed an additional $500,000 to 525 to complete that project to the scope that we wanted it to be completed. So the EDC agreed to take out a tax note and use and guarantee their funds to pay that back in order for us to complete this project appropriately. So that's how we funded it. what council did after was based off recommendations was kind of as a thank you to the EDC and to soften any blow that we can. Hey, any money we make off of this after we've paid off what it costs to operate it, why don't we contribute that to the tax note to help alleviate any pressure on the EDC going back in? Does that make sense? Anything there? Mike, you got anything to add there? Okay. Move on to street improvement. So with street improvement, we're not proposing any major changes here, just yet. But understand that we do have the South Race Street project that will hit this fund this next year. We just do not know the dollar amount yet from the county on how much it's going to cost. So county is going to come in and just like we always do with the county, we'll pay for materials only. We don't pay for labor or any of that stuff. They'll agree to put it down as long as we pay for materials. We can anticipate that that's probably going to cost around $100,000 based off the North Race Street project, but we don't know an exact dollar amount yet. And we don't necessarily want to budget that until we do know. So what we'll do is we'll just leave the budget as is right now as far as capital expenditures. And when we do have the dollar amounts, we'll come back to council and say, this is what it's going to cost. We're going to ask for a budget amendment. Ask you to approve that allocation, then we'll do a budget amendment to fix that going forward.
Just like the 101,000 that's showing currently for this year, this is saying, we're waiting, we're gonna do the budget amendment, so then you'll see it as the revised budget. It's already been approved, we just haven't done that.
Any questions there? Next is crime control district. So we're doing this differently this year. Previously, we were paying the fleet payment directly out of crime control district. And that's not how we're supposed to do it. So the fleet payment is actually rolled into the admin transfers out. So that is why you see such a jump in the admin transfers out. That includes the administrative overhead as well as the fleet payment to cover the police fleets and the lease payments and capital that goes into the police cars every year. All vehicle maintenance now hits non-departmental.
General fund.
Yes, ma'am. We're covering general fund expenditures on Friday. So yes, ma'am, we can cover vehicle maintenance then. So they're annual leases. So we can terminate that. We can terminate the lease agreement at any point in time. It's not like a 10-year agreement. Every year we roll all these in. We take the white fleet, for example, which is public works and city staff. All those vehicles are typically on a 1-year lease. We have that vehicle for a year. We drive it for a year. We turn it back into enterprise and they issue us a new vehicle. We take the proceeds from the sale of those vehicles and roll them back into the lease payments. You see that as a revenue. I think we just got a check off the vehicles for like 136,000 based off the vehicles that we turned in. That $136,000 revenue will reflect back and we'll roll that into paying for the next round of vehicles. The school district did not approve the agreement for the 6 additional officers. That has been held off and they have not approved it. So as of right now, we are not adding any officers currently.
And they're not included in, if you'll look back in the salary and benefits portion, we did not include those positions. I had them all in there. Yeah.
So all of that has been tabled until the school district decides which direction they're going to go. They're looking at a couple of different options. There was concern about being able to fund it from their position. So it's all been put on hold. So we have They're going to continue to fund the 6 that they have funded. Yes, they're just not adding any additional. So we're not adding any vehicles to our inventory currently. Correct, at this time. That may change. They're still, they're trying to identify which way they're gonna go. But that has not been set in stone yet. Any questions on CCD? All right. Last one's just the,
It's just the residual amount that we have sitting out there for 2020 CO. But there's no proposed, budget for any purchases at this time.
I'm glad you think so.
Let's have a repeat on Friday.
All right, so we still have a few minutes. Does anybody have any other questions or anything we need to go back over? Okay, so is everybody on board right now with the salaries and increases? Like, I don't want to get your affirmative because obviously it's going to depend on truth and taxation and how things come in at the end, but we would like to iron that out as early as possible because it is probably the biggest, well, it is the biggest impact on the budget. So is everybody okay with that proposal?
Is it sustainable?
Oop,
We pass this and then we can't, the taxes things are gonna chew us up.
Well, we'll know before that.
Yeah, we'll know before we adopt the budget if we can fund it or not.
So it's not a done deal as far as employees are concerned.
No, it won't be a done deal until you adopt the budget.
Don't want people
We'll
getting their
have-
hopes up.
We'll have final revenue numbers before anything is approved.
Okay. And that's my big concern.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just want, can we afford it? Okay. Okay, that was my only question.
All right, if we don't have anything else, then the time is 6:14 and we are adjourned. Be
For
back
10
at
minutes.
6:30.
Go to your
Back out.
I know.
One more that.
Is that? Well, yeah. Stop that.
That's gonna take some getting used to. Okay. Okay, we'll call the regular city council meeting for the city of Everman to order. It is July 18, 2023 on a Tuesday, and the time is 6:31. Everybody, please rise for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge of allegiance. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is consent agenda. Item A, reading of the minutes from June 6, 2023, regular council meeting minutes. June 20th, 2023, regular council meeting minutes, and then item B, financials for June 2023. I'll entertain a motion. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Poll the council.
Place one. Place three. Place four.
Aye.
Place five. Place six, or mayor, sorry.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item is presentations. Item A, administration of oath of office for Officer Cliff Thrasher.
Come on up, sir. Right here, right here. Yeah, we got to make sure we get you on camera and hear you and everything. Mayor, council, I want to introduce to you Officer Cliff Thrasher. He comes to us after a change of heart. The majority of his career he spent in sales, right?
Yes, sir.
And sales, had a change of heart and decided that he had a calling to law enforcement. This is what he wanted to do long term. Just recently graduated from the Weatherford College Police Academy and decided that this was going to be his next home. So he put in for us and we were pleased to bring him on board and are happy to have him here. He has got, if you get the chance to talk to him, he's got the most positive attitude of anybody I've ever met in my life. I don't know if it's the sales in you or what, but he is extremely, extremely positive. Everybody enjoys really being around him. He's been working the streets now in FTO for the past couple of weeks. So I'm glad to bring him here tonight and introduce you to him, as well as swear him in and have his family here as a part of that as well. So we're very lucky to have him. He is a veteran.
Yes, sir.
And also serves as the, yes, ma'am, I'm going to move, and also serves in the Texas National Guard as well currently, right? State Guard, I'm sorry. State Guard. So, all right, sir. You'll raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Clifford Thrasher,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of City of Everman,
of City of Everett,
Police Officer
police officer
of the State of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will to the best
and will to the best
of my ability
of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Probably just get your signature right here. And you said it was your wife who's going to be pinning you?
Yes, sir.
All right, you want to come on down? Did you wear your vest? You did not. Boy, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
This is yours. We'll take a photo with that. All right. Did he give you instructions beforehand? Just shove it really hard, straight forward, right back. You get it? All right. Congratulations, sir. And then you guys want to come up and get a photo real quick? You guys all want to come up and take a photo real quick? Officers, you want to come up here too? Be all right. Come on. That's yours, sir. Absolutely.
The first picture I took of my son was when he was born.
You guys can all squeeze in. There's plenty of room. Come on. Make sure we get your wife in here. Can't get everybody but her. Come on in here. We'll make it fit. There's a reason why we call them front row.
Guys, thank y'all so much. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Congratulations, sir. No,
I
welcome
really
aboard.
appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the family.
So next item is citizens' comments. Do we have anything, Mindy? Okay, no citizens' comments. So we'll drop down to item 8, which is consideration possible action. Item A, consideration of approval of various job descriptions for the city employees. All
right.
You want to talk first or you want to?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to approve these individually based off each one. So we're gonna start with the accounting clerk. I know we've got a real thick agenda tonight, so we'll start. We'll start with the accounting clerk position. This is a job description for an accounting clerk position, a part-time position within the city. As you read through, this will fall underneath the finance department and report directly to the finance director. It aligns with pay scale A, which is the current pay scale that all of the current staff of the library are under. This will be one of the positions that staff will have an opportunity to transfer over to. Essentially, this role will assist with processing invoices, purchase orders, other requests for payment, processing of accounts receivable for services, registration of contractors, vendors, City of Everman, perform reconciliation of credit card receipts and expenditures, make and receive telephone calls, and then perform other such duties as may be assigned by the finance director. The only required knowledge here and skills is essentially to be able to operate a computer calculator system, type accurately, interact with the general public and other departments, maintain confidentiality, follow instruction safety practices, and conduct themselves within a set of values and accepted standards. Certifications required is only a high school diploma or equivalent and an applicable driver's license, and they must be bondable. The rest is just your typical boilerplate language within there that's required on all job descriptions. So,
No.
Mayor,
How many part-time employees do we have with the library?
there are 5 currently.
They're all part-time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and will cover all 5 positions?
No, we're asking council to approve 3 positions tonight. There will only be 1 position available for the events coordinator, because that's only going to require 1. The other 4, we can kind of divvy out between accounting clerk, records clerk, as well as permitting clerk, which I don't have a job description for that one for you tonight, but we'll.
Okay,
We can have 2 under this.
now do you want to go ahead and do approval on this one or you want to?
Yeah, if we can get an approval on this one, if you want to entertain a motion on the accounting clerk job description, we'll move forward there.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the accounting clerk position.
I move we approve the accounting clerk position as discussed.
Motion made second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to know if going forward, if we have any items on the agenda and they have handouts, if we could get them before the meeting.
Normally we do, these just were not finalized and reviewed by the attorney prior to the meeting, so we just didn't get a chance to get them to you beforehand.
Any other discussion? Poll the council.
Place one. Place three,
No.
place four,
Aye.
place five,
Aye.
Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
Next position, we're going to go to the records clerk position. Again, another part-time position. This position will fall underneath the city secretary, who is the custodian of all records for the city. Again, falls underneath pay scale A, non-exempt, part-time. Duties here are organizing, scanning, storing documents and records for long-term retention within the city of Everman's electronic file management system, as well as organizing and storing of documents and records for long-term retention within the city of Everman record storage facility. Maintain a log of records processed, receives, processes, and fulfills open records request. Assist other city personnel and elected officials with locating records and documents, receive telephone calls with citizens, and then perform other such duties as may be assigned by the city secretary. Actually identical required knowledge here for this position. The only additional certification that's required for this position, as with any governmental position that deals with records, they must complete a Public Information Act training through the State Attorney General's office within 3 months of the appointment, and they must become a certified notary public within 3 months of the appointment the city will pay for.
I'll entertain a motion. Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Poll the council.
Place one. Place three,
No.
place four,
Aye.
place five, Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
All right, last position is the events coordinator position. This position is to coordinate, manage, and support public and private events held at the Everman Civic Center and other city facilities. That's a typo. I'll correct that. Also provides support to department directors for other city-sponsored event. This position is a part-time position with a reasonably flexible schedule. This position does require some weekend and evening work. The examples of work here: to receive telephone calls on the city-issued cell phone. We will issue this individual a city-issued cell phone so that way they can work remotely and receive calls, particularly as an event's going on. If we have somebody who's rented this venue on a Saturday, we want them to have a point of contact with the city that they can reach during that event in case something happens, and to make sure that they can unlock and lock up the facility. They'll provide the highest quality customer service to users of the facility, schedule and provide tours of the facility to interested parties, provide and coordinate on-site support as needed to customers renting the facility, manage a rental calendar and coordinate services needed from other departments such as Public Works for table, chair, and stage setup, janitorial service for cleanup, etc. They'll perform regular inspections of the facility to report and document any damages, and manage audio and video equipment during city-sponsored events, i.e. city council meetings, town hall meetings, holiday events, etc. The only required skills here are the same as the others. The additional certification that's required here is we're asking this individual to complete an approved training associated with the usage of our audio video equipment within 3 months of the appointment. That just means that we're going to ask them to sit down with likely our IT guy to make sure that they understand how the computer works, the video works, connect it all, set it all up. So that way we don't have to have this person contact our IT every time we have a minor issue. There is a remote work statement included in this one because this position is a flexible schedule. There likely will be some times where this person may have to work from home or may not be on site, but we still need to compensate them for time. For example, on a Saturday, if there's a rental going on and they're expected to answer a phone during a certain time period, we need to compensate the employee for that time period. So just to cover the city's in, we have to make sure that we include a remote work statement in the job description that gives us the authority to control that remote work.
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion made second. Any further discussion? Poll the council.
Place one. Place three,
No.
place four,
Aye.
place five, Mayor,
Aye.
motion carried.
Executive session, we have none. City managers report.
Just a reminder, we have the National Fitness Campaign Fitness Court ribbon cutting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We've got some guest speakers coming. Blue Cross and Blue Shield will be here, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, as well as either Commissioner Brooks or a representative of Commissioner Brooks will be here. There is a ceremony outlined. Gilbert, Landon, and Evelyn have been working very hard to make sure it's all coordinated out. I know Evelyn's been running around like a chicken with her head cut off to get it all fulfilled, but we're ready to go tomorrow morning for that. We're excited about that ribbon cutting and getting that new facility open. Other than that, staff we're just focused on trying to support Susan and budget as much as we can right now. So nothing else for you, Mayor.
Well, I don't have anything other than.
Oh, and
remember-
Friday's
Yeah,
workshop.
don't
Don't forget
forget,
about it.
remember our meeting on Friday.
Yep.
1 o'clock. So that being said, the time is 6:45 and we are adjourned.
That was almost a record. 16 minutes. I like it.